Cancelled.
Schweezy.
So I guess it's time to talk about this, and I feels weird, like, because a lot of the point of this podcast is for, to monetize me saying stupid shit, but then, like, real shit happens in your life, and you're like, you don't know what to do, because I want to talk about this on the show, but, I want to make it a highlight and, share it in the with my dad's friends and everything, but then it feels like you're trying to make money off of this. But recently, if you haven't checked out, recently I posted on the YouTube page and on like wherever you listen to podcasts, it's Best of Papa Schweg, and I started off the whole thing talking about my dad passing away, and yeah, so Papa Schweg recently passed away. It's just it's so bizarre to me, just like thinking about it. Because like the thing is, he was just like so healthy, and so for those of you who saw Parents Alive, like you kind of there is something like I'm 28 and a half, I guess, to be respectable, but I'm getting close to 30, and obviously when you get close to 30, you get this point, it's like my parents aren't going to live forever, and you kind of have to like you're kind of waiting for a health issue to arise and stuff like that. And that was the problem with my parents. They're both super healthy. And even up to his death, he was, for the most part. I'll get back to that in a little bit. But for those you don't know, I'm going to continue. I'll probably still promote it. My dad was on my former podcast, the Schwegcast, and for the most part, and I think he may have trickled over into Cancel Schweezy a little bit. But I had like 3+ hours recordings of just like him talking, and it was fun. I'm telling you, like, he loves public speaking. He loved public speaking. He did a lot of things, but he loved public speaking. Like, he would do sermons at church and like at his church, and he taught a class. Like, he taught a class, and you know how you think like your high school teacher's like, oh, the history teacher, he's just like a coach, and like he's just teaching history because it's like the easy subject or whatever. But like that was so much different. Like, my dad liked coaching, but he loved teaching, and like he's being remembered as a coach most part because like he like in regards to coaching, like he became like a coach. He was like a great coach and everything, according to all his students who have been telling me how much they love my dad. Everyone's been reaching out to me right now, but like he was a great coach, but like he loved talking. He absolutely loved talking, and doing sermons is great. Teaching is like, if you love talking, I think teaching is a great profession. It's like, but you also have to have that passion for like helping people become better than they are. But my dad like absolutely loved that, so it's always weird, like getting to talk to him on like have 3 hours of recordings of my dad talking. Like he absolutely loved talking. He loved, I would like, Christmas time, I'd love to just, when I was around my family, like I'd love to just, I like forcing podcasts on people and forcing them to talk to me. Like mom was like, my brother did it once and he was like, I'm never doing that again. But my dad was like, I'm down. I don't think he didn't act so like enthusiastic about it, but he was always down to like podcasting. He just had that in. I guess he like they wanted to, like some radio station at the college he coached at, they wanted to talk to the coach, and like the radio station was just like a talk show, like like most podcasts are now, but like radio used to be what podcasts were. And so, like, they would, they just, like, chat and stuff like that. And they're like, you can stick around if you want to. And my dad's like, okay. He loved talking. You may have not known it, but I think he liked being the center of attention. I think that's where I probably got that problem from. Wanting to be the center of attention is a problem. And I think it's inherited because that was my dad. And that is now me. I love being the center of attention. A little bit less than when I was a kid. I think music really, like, numbed that for me. I think my dad figured that out with teaching and coaching. I think that really helped him out with that. But no, go check out as long as that rant was, go check out Papa Schweg on it's called The Best of Papa Schweg. It's wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. For those on YouTube, like, I know my mom shares with people, and it's easier for the boomers to share that shit. But and also for my dad's friends who are listening to me talk about my dad. I do cuss a lot, so I'm sorry if that makes you upset. So just hopefully you deal with it. But I love my dad, so you have to stick with him if you love my dad too. That's the rule. That's what we're going with. But go check out that. It's like, I was lucky you got 3 hours of it, and it was really life changing for me. Getting to talk about that, because like, it was my dad saying, like, me and your mom, we really did the best we could, with you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, like, any problems I have with my dad, like, look, and people are like, do you hate your dad? I'm like, well, I got on antidepressants. I desperately needed to get on antidepressants when I was probably 15, but I got on them when I was 21, hitting 22. And so I tell anyone that don't take anything I said before I got on antidepressants on record, because it was just really not the me I wanted to be. Once I got on antidepressants, I think that was the me I needed to be. But anyways, though, it was fun. Like, I think that's the main thing I would take out of those 3 hours is my dad and my mom saying, we always, we weren't the best, but we tried the best we could. And so that was always really meaningful to me. Like, I think that's on, like, the first time I ever pressed record on us talking. So, I mean, that's, and if I start crying, you cannot call me gay. I'm going to say no homo. So you cannot call me gay. Another thing I want to talk about, people will tell you there's like nothing prepares you for your parents dying. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. I agree with you. And then it happens to you. And,
congratulations. You played yourself.
That was not the one I wanted.
That's rough, buddy.
That was the one I wanted. Nothing. I'm telling you, nothing can prepare you. Like, you can think. In my mind, I was telling you earlier on the show, I was thinking, like, okay, whenever mom and dad's health gets bad, you kind of just have to mentally prepare for them to get going. And, like that. You try, you think in your head, like, if you're lucky enough to be a little bit older like I am, and to think, like, oh, my parents are going to die one day. Obviously, like, I'm trying to think here, like, oh, nothing. And I'm like 20 and a half, and I expected, the health of my dad. And like, he was always a very healthy guy. He was like, the worst thing I do is drink like maybe 2 Dr. Peppers a day. And I'm like, it's a lot of sugar, but like, he was a very skinny guy, and stuff like that. So like, and and you're going to hear this, I know. So I'm going to talk to you. I'm talking to everyone here. Some of you have lost a parent, or all your parents, and some of you have not lost a single parent yet. And, I'm telling you right now, nothing prepares you for losing your parents. And you're like, that makes sense. I'll take that by heart. And then it happens to you. And you're like, well, Schweezy was right. And so I'm right. I'm always right. But like, I heard that before about other people. And I'm like, oh my God. And then it happens to you. And you're like, nothing. There's no way to just prep for it. Like, you can't prep. And I even think about people, like, parents in a different situation. I'm like, I cannot believe. Nothing will prepare you for a parent dying. And I'm sorry for those of you who feel a little bit emotional about that, but I wish there was an easier way to tell you. But, like, luckily, that helped me a little bit more hearing other people say it, in the past than it is right now. So, but, I obviously miss my dad already and stuff like that. But let me talk more. I guess a lot of people are wanting to know how he passed away so quickly. I messaged a lot of my, like, close friends, but I guess I want to keep things a little bit, I'm trying to make sure I don't cross that line of, like, things family doesn't need to know, or not family, but, like, the public doesn't need to know, but, like, also, like, I don't want to be honest, know what's going on. Nothing, like, none of this is, like, an embarrassing type of situation. So I might be a little bit censored in what I say, but I do, moving forward, a little bit what happened, but I just want to let you know that I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to be super deceitful. I just want to respect the privacy of my family. He died of prions, Prions. Prions is how I'm pronouncing it. It's probably a better pronunciation, but I don't know. I'll just read you what Wikipedia says about it. Prions are misfolded proteins with the ability to transmit their misfolded shape onto normal variants of the same protein. They characterize several fatal and transmittable neurodivergent disease in humans and many other animals. So basically like that. Some people called it like mad cow disease. I think the diagnosis we kind of thought is like when my dad was a kid, just goofing around hunting with my grandpa, and like they shot a really random wild animal. He ate that, and he like the protein entered his body, lay dormant until like a month ago, and then everything kind of happened from there. It was fucking crazy because like a month ago, I think I talked about on the show, like we thought he just had like a minor stroke that was having some complications with seizures. And so like we're taking him to physical therapy, and the physical therapist like, you need to go back to the hospital. And we took him back to the hospital, and he just kept getting worse and worse. And eventually after thousands of like tests, they figured out the prions were in his body. And prions is, it's just a super rare disease. The RN, which stands for registered nurse, not real inward, for some of the woke people out there. She's been working since like 1997 as a nurse, or registered nurse, not the other one I was telling you about. She started in 1997, and she said in her time working, which I have to imagine, if you've been working since 1997, that's at least 20 plus years. She's only had this is the second case of this she's seen. It's super rare, and only 300 people are diagnosed with this every year, maybe. And 300 is like the max, and so like some years is probably a lot lower, and usually most of the time it's probably a lot lower. And it's just like, and you think, oh, 300 people, that's a lot. Like, no, it's not when it comes to diseases. Look at how many people died of COVID this year alone. And it's just such a low, like this is more rare than COVID. And there is no cure. It's just so rare, there's no cure. And like, once we heard that news, I heard that news last Monday. That's why we had to cancel the last week's podcast, because we learned there's no cure. He was already on life support and in an induced coma at that point. And like you learn, like I just get a call at 10 a.m. I was like, well, they figured out Dad was diagnosed with this, and there's no cure for it, and he is going to die. He's not going to make it. And you're like, okay. And I don't know how to act on the phone, so I hang up, and I'm like, I've been going through every existential dread, every kind of like, I don't know, like every, the stages of grief or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to function. Like I grew up where it's like men don't cry and shit like that. Like you don't know what you're allowed to do, and you're like, gotta stay strong. Like my mom's doing hard, and like I didn't know what to do. But I'm like, you can go up to the hospital with us. And once I learned that, I'm like, okay, I'm coming up right now. Like I'll do that. I'm like, you just no. Like I just mentioned, like no one prepares you for the death of a parent. Like nothing can prepare you for it. And you think like, well, I'll mentally be ready. And you're like, no, you fucking won't. Even like if you know for a while your parent's gonna die, like you do not. Like we had a couple days, like we could have kept him alive, like as long as we wanted to on an induced coma. But even that is like, Jesus. So like prions or however you want to pronounce it. Like I'm just gonna call them prions because that's easiest for my Kansas trash mouth to pronounce. It's like that. Like it's just a super rare disease. So like I also want to say, like my dad wasn't like, so with prions, I guess you were not allowed to be an organ donor because for the most part, if you are diagnosed with that, like if your organs go into someone else, that person will get prions too. And which is unfortunate because I feel like other than that, my dad was like a super healthy guy, like probably more healthy than I am at 28, because I'm like, well, I'm kind of fat, and well, I'm pretty fat, and like my right kidney can sometimes have a lot of pain if I drink way too much, and it's an excessive amount. Let's be honest. So I'm like, I'm an organ donor, and then like that happens or whatever. So like basically, he can't be an organ donor, but we wanted like they're like, well, he can donate a little like a sample of his brain to a research facility in Cleveland that studies this stuff, and maybe one day with his sample they can find a cure. And we're like, well, if since Dad wanted to be an organ donor, like everyone agreed in the family who got to have that decision. We're like, well, he wanted to be an organ donor, and I think he would have loved that to happen. But then also, my mom was freaking about all the logistics because they didn't know, like, his body has to go to Cleveland or whatever, and we wanted him to have an open casket funeral. But luckily, things worked out where we have to send him to, like, southern Missouri to get the sample, where he's probably at right now as I'm recording this. And then they send him back to where we're gonna, bury him and do the funeral and everything like that. Luckily, and I think you should be an organ donor. I think it's a good thing, and I guess the big question is really funny because the big question for organ donors is like, I want to have an open casket funeral, and it's like, and the answer is you still can. They're gonna take out your organs, and I guess where the scars are, you should have clothes on. You want to be buried with clothes on. I don't think you want an open casket funeral of you naked. So that's also an encouragement to everyone who can be an organ donor, because you can still have an open casket funeral. They just take out the organs, stuff you, and then the scars won't be seen. That's just my dad. Luckily, my dad was able to get that sample out, and so you should too. Another thing, people keep asking me, they're like, how are you doing? And I accidentally said that to someone at a funeral once, and I think about that all the time when I'm trying to fall asleep because it was super cringe. And people keep asking me that, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to fucking answer that question. You're like, oh, my dad's dying. I'm watching my dad die right now. Thanks for asking. But I have been getting a lot of messages besides that. And I also do want to say, though, like, I've been getting a lot of messages from people I don't know, people I've lost touch with, people, maybe I've fallen out with and stuff like that. But thank you, everyone who's been sending me messages. I really appreciate it. If I reply to you, I may be doing something that doesn't sound super sincere. But no, I am sincere. I just, it's a little difficult to try and, talk about your fucking dead dad right now. When you learned on a Monday that he's going to die, and then on Thursday he does die. It was a little bit rough. We thought he just had a minor stroke, and then he just ended up dying from it. So I put all the recordings I did. I talked about it. I put it on one podcast, and I know he consented to me airing all this. So you can go check it on YouTube or whatever, wherever you listen to podcasts. There is one story he did tell me that did not make it onto any podcast, which I was hoping he would tell me one day. Basically, the story was that a kid, when he was in elementary school, a kid stole stationery from the school, and he wrote a letter to my dad's parents, my grandparents, that he was expelled and what he did and whatever. And so obviously my grandparents get that, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? And my dad's like, no, I'm not expelled. And he looked at the letter, and he knew it was like his friend's handwriting. Like, look at the letter. There's a lot of misspelling in that letter. You need to believe me. And he was like, call the school right now to get an explanation, because and in my mind, I'm like, no kid who's getting expelled is telling their parents, call the school. And because if you calling the school, it would be like, things are going to get about a lot worse for you. So I always thought that was a really funny story, just how a kid basically kind of got away with that. But I guess talking about the day my dad died, he, so in his will, he requested to not be on life support anymore, which, makes a lot of sense. A lot of people don't want that. Still is not a good decision for the family members, but at the same time, you have to realize, on that life support, it's not really living, and you just, it's best to just follow the wishes of someone. It's not easy, but also they're not really there anymore. So Like, we pull his life support. And let's remind you that my dad was a track star in his heyday. So if you don't know, my dad ran long distances really well, and he could do like 20 miles or whatever. And to do 20 miles, it's not like how fast you can run, it's like how well you can keep up with it. My mom did short distances really fast. So we forget my dad's a marathon runner. And so we pull the plug, and like 7 hours later, he's still living. And so, like, me and my brother decided to go home, get a night's sleep, wake up the next day. We're like, oh, his oxygen's going bad. So, like, we rushed to the hospital, which is an hour and a half away. Thank you. They live in nowhere, Missouri. We luckily made it in time. Like, we think he knew kind of what was going on and everything like that. So that was a nice thing. But like, he wasn't talking on his deathbed. We were like, oh, you get to meet, my brother/sister, Chris, who my parents had a miscarriage before my older brother was born. And so you get to meet them. So you got to meet my grandma, my mom's mom, because my mom's mom died when she was 14. So, like, you get to meet my mom. You get to see grandma again. You can see my grandpa, all my grandparents again. And you can see my dad's brother, E.G., who died of AIDS in the 90s, which you know what the situation was. So it's like, it was a very nice moment when he passed. Me and my brother were there. My mom was there. So we were surrounded by a close family, which was really good. Doesn't make it easier. Like I told you, nothing prepares you for the death of your parents. That's just how it's going to be for all of you.
That's rough, buddy.
But yeah, though. My dad loved talking. He hated Wheel of Fortune, which was sad because he loved the local news, and the local news would play, then end, and then Wheel of Fortune would begin. So kind of unfortunate for him. But as I end this segment, all I want to say is I hope we remember my dad well. I'm gonna be. He's gonna be in my mind the rest of my life. I'm gonna miss. I'm holding it together pretty well, but I'm going to miss talking to him about, my dad saw every Star Wars movie in theaters, and then when they posted Disney Plus shows, like, he's seen all of those. So the Obi-Wan Kenobi show that he was looking forward to is going to be coming up in May, or
Come on, Mark, don't be stingy.
coming out, better believe I'm coming up in May. He's not gonna be able to see that. I'm obviously watching. I love Star Wars. But my dad he watched A New Hope in theaters, and he was in the front row, and he had to, like, look up so awkwardly to see that roll, that big scroll and everything. Like, he saw every Star Wars project. And I'm pretty sure he's seen, like, movie wise, he's seen every project. The only thing he hasn't watched is, like, the Clone Wars, like, cartoon series. And so, yeah, I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that guy. He became an old man the moment I was born, and he was like 35 when I was born, and like he decided, like, I'm gonna be an old man now. Like, the moment I was born is when he decided to. So I'm gonna miss my dad, and I know this is gonna be like a highlight, and all my dad's friends are always telling me stories about him, and I'm gonna miss that guy, and I'm gonna miss miss your dad. It's like, I lived away from him for so long, and you're like, if I just want to talk to him, I just send him a text or give him a call, but now wherever I go, it's like I don't have that opportunity anymore, and I don't know, nothing really prepares you for that. But I'm so blessed to have 3 hours of recording with him. I digitized all our baby movies or whatever, like all the VHS tapes I digitized for my parents, and nothing's gonna replace him. Nothing at all will replace my dad, and that's just that's a fact of life. You can't replace people. That's the problem. I'm kind of just rambling right now. I think I finished all my notes, but you can't replace your father, even if you hate him or not. But I don't know. I'll miss my dad. And you think about, like, when someone passes away, like, the flaws of someone, and I'll always complain about my dad's flaws. That's not a problem. That's a great way to keep him alive, just to talk about my dad's flaws.
White people.
But nothing really can replace your dad. Yeah, I mean, even if you hate your parents, like I hear about people who had just rough relationship with their parents. That parent dies, and then you're like, it's still rough, And I'm lucky, It's like, Dad was hard on me, and then my mom was like, sorry, he was hard on you. He just cared about you. And my brother was like, oh, you wasn't hard on me. I'm like, well, shit, he was hard on me, but can't replace the guy. He died a day before his birthday, and his birthday April 14th, birthday April 15th. And I always try to remember his birthday by letting everyone know to not tape over their wedding VHS with a football game. That's what Dad would have wanted, even though no one uses cassette tapes anymore. But you also shouldn't tape over your wedding tape or whatever. I don't know. It's nice, I wish my dad was still here, but it's nice hearing from other people, hearing kind words, and you gotta, I gotta talk to my dad's friends and like hear them like tell stories about him. Like, I didn't know he was like this normal of a person, and like I guess like a month or two before he died, like I didn't know if he ever drank alcohol before, which was like on brand for what I do. He told me, he's like, I guess Piano Man by Billy Joel came on the radio. And I told him, like, yeah, there's this YouTube video of, like, basically someone timed it out perfectly where Billy Joel says, it's 9 o'clock on Saturday. And, like, the timing was, like, perfect or whatever with the recording. And then he told me, like, the story's like, yeah, one time I was over 21. And I guess I was drinking a little bit at a party. And I guess I drank too much. So I had to call your grandpa. And we were like, hey, I drank a little too much. I'm going to sleep this off and come home. And girl was like, yeah, that sounds good. Like that's the, if you drink too much, just sleep it off a little bit and then come home. But no, I don't know. I'll probably be talking stories about my dad for the rest of the time on this podcast. So y'all are going to have to suffer through it if you continue to listen to it. But also remember, I think the best way to remember someone is to continue to, tell stories about them.
What?
Especially good stories. Don't tell bad stories about people. That's not a great way to remember people, but I guess I poured myself a shot for my dad. So, in a red Solo cup. So, here's to Papa Schweg. Usually my toast is here's to feeling good all the time, but here's to Papa Schweg. May his memory live in all of us forever and ever and ever. And may us not forget the impact he's made on all of our lives. For those who don't know him, those who just listen to stories of him, for those who've heard stories of him, and for those who actually got to know him. I guess the Earth is billions and billions of years old, and we all get to live at the same time as Tim Schwegler, better known on this podcast only as Papa Schweg. So let's take a drink to that. Hey, you just finished one of the many, many highlights from Cancel Schweezy. We got plenty more on the channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you like what you just watched, go ahead and smash that like button as well. Go subscribe for more so we can teach you how to be a better human in our world. So, yeah, stay awesome.